The throwdown with Mal Meninga, all thanks to Chemist Warehouse. How are you, Malcolm?
Oh, I'm very well. Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you very much. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you for asking. It's funny how you ask very politely on air, but when we have our pre-match phone conversation, you're very direct with me, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I'm nothing wrong with that, is there?
No.
Well, you got to express some sort of opinion. That's why we do this, don't we?
That's
just
right.
Sit around and and I don't know. So I'll just sit on the fence with this one. We'll see what happens. Just in case I get into trouble or some reporter might report it. So yeah, or it may go on to some sort of social site. You'll be very careful what you say these days.
Very careful. Very careful. Any meetings this week, Mal? Any meetings? You had a meeting last week. Any meetings this week?
No, not really. No. I had a meeting with the WA government yesterday, which is really good here in Canberra. They came over, the facilities guys. So they came over and had a look at the set of excellence, the Raiders. So they were they're suitably impressed. They've been going around all the different clubs. They've been to South and Penrith and other clubs and Roosters. I think they're at some of the AFL clubs, just having a look at centres of excellence. To actually apply the best of. So to get whatever plans we get in place for the Perth Bears over in Perth, at their site, and get that all right. So that we're looking at a state of the art, best practice type facility, based around environmentally friendly, and so it's so they were in Canberra yesterday. They had some really good chats around what we want in a set of excellence, and hopefully that will be built by the start of the 2028 season.
Who is and they're coughing up the dough for that, aren't they? The WA government.
Well, the government's part of part of that arrangement, and I think we're going to do it in conjunction with the Force, that I believe. So it'll be a joint facility, but obviously will be separately done at both our facilities. But it's going to be interesting. Yeah,
you missed out on Jerome Hughes. That was unfortunate.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
but the good thing is you're going to get Cameron Munster, so that's good.
Yeah, no, apparently. Yeah. But that's just the news cycle, isn't it? So I mean, we're never in the hunt with Jerome, so he's always wanted to stay in Melbourne. So they've just got that done. And then because Jerome signed for Melbourne, we've missed out. The Perth Bears can't, what do they do now?
Yeah.
But we're never in the hunt there, seriously.
Okay. How things going because obviously November 1 is going to be a key date around that. There are some players that you might be able to sign now, but then you've got to house them for a year, and we've talked about that on this program. There's a lot of people talking on these programs on SEN and talking about dispensation and whether that. So give us a snapshot of how it's going in the marketplace for you, Mal, and the conversations that you're having.
Well, the conversation we're having is correct. Everyone's off contract who were off contract last November 1st, we're allowed to talk to. So, we're having some really good conversations there. Obviously, we're trying to build our affiliate arrangements, so we still haven't got to any conclusion with the North Sydney Bears, what we're going to do there. So there's a whole heap of conversations have been had. However, the thing that everyone needs to understand, and I'm trying to be patient with all this as well, is that we've got a board meeting. The board are getting together next Monday, Tuesday over in Perth.
Right.
And these are the sort of discussions we're going to have. We haven't got a budget in place just yet. So it's all these things that needs to be discussed as part of the strategy and vision going forward. And then, from there get approval to start to look at, how we shore up our position in the current marketplace, and then obviously look at how we can start to recruit players after November 1st.
In your conversations with agents, has there been a level of interest? I'd be surprised if there wasn't.
No, there's certainly a level of interest.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, to go to Perth, it's a great city, and it's great quality of living over there. It's just, but then again, most of when you talk about marquee players, you talk about the marquee players, and most of those players, or that second rung of players, most of those guys are already signed up with their clubs, and that's the clubs have been really active at the moment, as we all know.
Yep.
Signing up their players and their best up and comers up until 27, 28. So that takes us right out of the market. So then you got R360. We're not quite sure what the relevance there is. There is obviously media talk, nothing much happening there, so we're not quite sure what will happen. But if it does get going, well, that's another competitor in the market as well. So for us, we're sort of the longer we leave it, I guess, the less chance us building the strongest roster we possibly can. The meeting next Monday, Tuesday is really important around what are we allowed to do? How do we make decisions? We've got to set up a recruitment committee, and who's in that? So they're all the sort of things that need to be addressed, and then we need to get on with the business, communicating and finding solutions. Finding solutions to I guess all the questions that will be asked around the Perth Bears.
So there's the Port Moresby side, whatever they're to be called. The dispensation they're getting is that the money's earned by the players and staff will be tax-free, right? You don't have anything right now. If there was to be a dispensation that you're looking for example, signing players effective immediately, what would it be that you would want, Mal? Because as you just said, the longer you leave it, the harder it is to put together your team.
Yeah. I just think when we talk about our budget, it gives us the ability to sign people up as of next year. So we haven't got a budget to look at. Well, how can we help North Sydney Bears? How we can help some. We're obviously looking at other affiliates as well. That we need to have conversations with to hold, particularly all the young kids. We want to develop our pathway system, and the North Sydney Bears are really good. Would be really helpful in that area. They want to be involved, so we just need to understand that better. But the ideal situation is take away that November 1st caveat for us, and then we can just get into talking to players. But the rules are the rules. There's no concessions for us, so we just got to apply by the rules. But there's nothing to say we can't have conversations. So we'll have conversations and just see how it all marries up. But it is difficult at the moment.
Are you knocking down the door? Are representatives of the Perth Bears knocking down the door of the NRL saying, "Hey, we need this"?
We've had meetings, but they're very firm, because I can understand as well, because one of the obligation conditions of the Perth Bears coming in the competition is that all clubs are reassured that they're on a level playing field. So there's no other concessions, like I said, that's going to help the Perth Bears attract someone. So we've got that's what I'm saying. We've got to keep on. We've got to work out what is our sell proposition. I've said that from day one.
Yeah.
I've worked on all that, and we've got a plan, and that's going to be presented in front of the board. But at the end, then it's got to be a whole club situation. You got to remember, there's only 2 employees at the moment. That's the CEO and me. And we've appointed Ben Gardner, but he's not available to next year.
Yep.
So that's all we've got. So we haven't really. So we haven't really got any influence on and how we go to the market.
Yeah. Wow. When you put it in those terms, that is incredibly challenging for you guys.
Yeah, it is, but not daunted by it, Jimmy. So we're not daunted by the fact that we've got a bit of work in front of us. And, we will get our hands dirty, and we'll work as diligently and as efficiently as we possibly can. And once we get the okay to start to get out there and compete in the market, well, I'm pretty confident we can land a couple.
People sending their text message. James, Mal's probably too nice to tell you, but he's just counting down the days until this contract ends and he never has to talk to you again. Cheers, Fitzy. Thanks, Fitz. Appreciate that.
That could be tomorrow. We don't know.
Was that you or me? I know we need to be
No,
careful.
you're doing such a terrific job. Everything's fine with you. So yeah,
Look at you.
everything's fine.
Look at you.
Hey?
Hey, no one's closer to the international game. No one has a love for it perhaps as much as you, right? And eligibility has been something that has, again, it comes up a lot. We've spoken about it a lot. It's come up again this week. What's your take on eligibility around international rugby league, Mal?
Yeah, it's so complex, Jimmy. So, I think we do need to sit around. I mean, demographics have changed. The whole, geography has changed. It's become, obviously a bit more global. The games take the game into, different regions, certainly America and stuff like that. So, I mean, the Perth Bears, we'll make sure that, we try to get into South African streams and things like that. So the game is changing globally as well, So, I agree. I mean, I've got some ideas on it all, and I have expressed it in the past. But the more I talk about it, and I talked to you beforehand, the more complex it becomes. So for me, I think the sensible solution is to get a whole array of people who, understands those complexities and get in a room and come up with a modern version of the eligibility rules. So the thing that sort of sticks in my mind is that, well, the Pacific Island nations, that demographic has changed in our game, and we've talked about this before. The reason why they're tier 2 is because back home in Samoa or Tonga or Fiji, they haven't got the development tools and influence, to produce players. But my argument of that is that majority of the players playing Pacific Islanders playing in our competition, the NRL competition, or the English Super League, were developed, in Australia or New Zealand, really. So when you talk about development systems, I think it's pretty advanced now with the players, and the players are obviously coming through and playing at NRL level and playing at Origin, playing in finals. So I think that argument can be squashed when you talk about, island criteria. I just think that all the players, all of them really are getting developed here in the more sophisticated systems of Australia, New Zealand, and England. So I think that needs to be taken off the table, and then
that's the tier 1 and tier 2. You say, right? Scrap that.
I don't think that's relevant. Well, then if you got someone like Vanuatu or the Cook Islands or nations like that, well, then obviously that goes into a tier 2 type scenario because you could try to pick a team out of that internationally is very difficult. So I think that's the first thing, the tiers, and then go from there. The other thing about Origin and the international program, I think they're two different elements of the game. So Origin's around the state alliances, it's around our associations, the QRL and the New South Wales Rugby League, and that was originated on because of the inequity between New South Wales and Queensland. You had Queensland players playing in the New South Wales, or Queensland-born players playing in the New South Wales team, and vice versa. There was, some New South. I mean, Johnny Sattler was one, played for Queensland. After moving up to Queensland from Sydney. So, just going back on the ethics of why Origin started is because it was where you're born. And I think you got to start from there. If you're born in New South Wales or you're born in Queensland, or you can use some other examples. If you're born in the Northern Territory or if you're born in WA, then you can have a look at, well, how can those players be eligible to play for Queensland, New South Wales? And that might come down to where they first played their first game of rugby league. I don't know. So, but I just think the eligibility around demographics and take away your tiers, and then use where you're born as the base for it all, and then work your way up from there. So, and then you can, it's quite easy because everyone in the game understands where players, where their ancestral lines lie. And then come up with a way. Well, then, do you make a decision? Do you make a decision early in the piece about what country you want to play for? Or, your suggestion is, well, if you don't get picked for, Samoa or Tonga or, this is the tier 1s, or Australia or New Zealand or England, well then you can go for whatever secondary ancestral obviously background you want to. So.
Yep.
As an example, a lot of Tongans and Samoans or Kiwis, they probably have Cook Island background. If they don't get picked for the Kiwis, well, you're able to play for the Cook Islands, so which is tier 2. So you've probably just taken Samoa and Tonga. No, and maybe Fiji. Well, you need to have a look at Fiji and where the majority of their players come from. So just things like that, mate. So you use a base, so it's the demographics, you take away your tiers and then you look at where everyone's born. And then I think then you sort of make some decisions, because every case is going to be different, isn't it?
Yes. So
like every player, including you and me, that played the game, we've got different. No, Australians born in Australia. I was born in Queensland. You're born in New South Wales. But my mother's heritage is Irish, and my dad's heritage is Vanuatu, South Sea. So everyone has it, except for First Nations people, which are they're the only true Australians, really. If you think about the ancestral background.
Yep.
We all come from different backgrounds. So so that's got to come into play. But I just think the tiers make it a bit more even spread.
Yeah.
And then because we don't want to bastardize either or cannibalize the Australian setup. This is. The Australian Rugby League has been going for many, many years, and the Australian team, and this is probably a selfish way I look at things, but we've been going, and New Zealand been going for, and England for over 100 odd years. So you can't cannibalise those nations for the benefit of others.
So we talked about Tino Fa'asuamaleaui in particular. Should Tino be able to have played for the Kangaroos, but now want to play for and be able to play for Samoa, in your mind?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it is muddying the waters when Tino or Payne Haas or talking about Hamaso.
Yep.
Talking about those guys going back to the Samoa. You can't blame them for doing that. I mean, I've got no issues with where their passion lies, because I've always held the view that if you're passionate about something, go do it.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about, if I'm the Australian coach, and Kevy Waller's already mentioned that, if you want to play for Australia, you want to put those green and gold jersey on. That's who I want playing in the Australian team and representing their country. So what I say is that, well, Tino, you made a decision to play for Australia. I just think you need to stay with Australia. That's early. I know that there's going to be arguments about, well, you've got this passion to play for your ancestral nation because your dad and came from there, and he's passionate about that. That's where his heritage is. So it becomes heartstring stuff. So again, I don't think I've got any answer for it. It's so complex. It's built around the heart, not the head. If that makes sense. So it's more to do with where your heart lies, and I know for being involved in our game for many, many years, that if you got your heart in Queensland, you'll play well. If you got your heart in Australia, well, you'll play well. But that's what I mean by taking the tiers out. It doesn't give Tino, if he chooses to play for Australia, and you can't go back, because Tonga and Samoa are tier 2, you can go back and make a choice. I think you need to take that out. It's what your first choice is. That's where your heart is, and you've got to stick to it. But there's some other rules over time where if you don't get picked in the Australian team, if you don't get picked in the New Zealand team, that you're able to get picked up by the other nations.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure about that either, particularly if Tonga and Samoa become a tier 1 nation. I just think take the tiers out, mate, to be honest with you. But you still have some caveats around the lesser countries like the Cook Islands, and Vanuatu's trying hard, Lebanon's trying hard, to get teams up. They made the finals of the last World Cup, Lebanon, so they've got some talent there as well, So it is like I keep saying, a complex issue, and I just think you have a base, like no tiers, where you're born, and go from there.
Kevin Walters said on this program last week, he said, I'm not going to sell the Australian jersey to anyone. You either want to play for it or you don't. So
you earn the Australian jersey. You're not given it.
Yeah, that's right. Now, this is a really good point from Braden. Morning, boys. So Braden's over there in Perth, so it is the morning.
Yep.
Mal, do you know the first board meeting, will they have a rough idea when membership stuff will be released?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because we need that to occur. So, again, part of the board is obviously understanding what we can do and what we can't do. So we need to get cracking. We need commercial guy or person come in. We need marketing people to come in to do all that sort of stuff. So one of the first things we need to do is get our branding out there, get our colours out there. So and part of all that is start your memberships, because I know. We've been asked, and we've getting a lot of inquiries around memberships, and we've actually got to get in, start walking with that, because that gives us a great impetus into, we do a membership drive, and you got when you market it and your media, you put it on the media, so we're up to this, and still so all those sort of things are yet to come, obviously, but we've got to do things like that sooner rather than later.
What about this PS from Braden? Also, guys, I think it's ridiculous that R360 is allowed to talk to players and Mal Meninga and the Perth Bears can't. That's a very good point.
Yeah, it is a good point. But in reality, we're constrained by the NRL regulations, about being a franchise team in the competition. So we're all conditioned around all that.
1300 01 1170. Shane is there. Go for it, Shane.
Yeah, Jimmy, Mal, how you going?
Good, Shane. Good, mate.
Just a couple of points on my Perth Bears, Mal. Look, I don't think we should get salary cap dispensation, but what I think the NRL should do is give us help with relocation, pay for relocation of all the players coming from the East Coast. The other point is we're going to have a squad of 30 plus 6 development players. Why don't we when we travel to the East Coast, bring 20 players over, and we leave the other players over on the West Coast and mix them in with the Perth comp, to strengthen the Perth comp, and the locals will get a kick out of it, probably attract more players into the Perth comp, because yourself, in the 80s, the Perth comp was very strong over there.
It was, yeah. Yep, mate. Shane, that's a great suggestion. The thing about that, I agree with you about leaving players back in the local competition. So I'm thinking, we're sort of thinking at the moment, those development players plus those 6, so those development players would be 18, 19, 20 years of age, obviously. You could even have some train and trial guys. So we've got what they call a soft cap, so there'd be some train and trialists as well. They'll be training with us prior to Christmas and into the new year. And then you got your bottom tier, obviously, of your top 30. So we've got to make sure that we look after the North Sydney Bears. I think that's really important. And how do we do that? We've still got to work on, because it is a logistical thing that we have to work through. But I agree with you. If we can work with the local competition, with those development kids and with those train and trial people or players, and then some of the bottom 30, I think that really works. And then it enables us then to leave players in the North Sydney Bears system as well for that season. So So I think it's a great move. It's like we've got to talk to you. We've got to talk to the game over there, but I think it's possible.
Yeah. Shane, that's some sort of record across 2 decades of radio that Shane's been ringing radio stations that I know about, that anyone has ever said, great suggestion, Shane, after one of his calls. So well done.
We are thinking about that. We are thinking about that, Jimmy. So how do we do that? How do we bolster the local competition?
Yeah.
So that's a really important part of the strategy. So a lot of funding's got to go into pathways and participation and all our development programs, academies over there. So that is a great way to bring the community together.
You're informed, Shane. Put it that way. Matty says
that's a great suggestion.
Mal, Munster, Tedesco, Pezzett, Verrills. Make it happen. Love your work from the Perth Storm Bears supporter. That's from Matty.
How good would that be? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, The thing about the cap. So let's just quickly talk about the cap. So if you bring players in of high value, they're the marquees. You buy 4 of them.
Yep.
So that 4 could take up anywhere from 5 to 6 mil, which is nearly half your cap.
Yep.
So then how do you fill the rest of the cap? So how do you fill the rest of your squad? So they're the intricacies, and again, I talk about complexities of putting a roster together. Is that if you're willing to pay over overpay $1 million for 4 players, that all of a sudden just eats up your cap, and then you've got to be really astute in the way you position players around them. So is it better to have one marquee and have a better distribution of players down in your roster system, or is it to have 2 or have none? Like when we talk about the complexities of it, have no marquees, but have a second run core players who are, it's just under that $1 million. You could buy 3 or 4 of those guys for the price of 2.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it adds depth to your squad. So just things like that you've got to take into consideration.
Who's the marquee player at the Dolphins? Who was their marquee player? Probably when they first started.
They tried. Well, they tried, but they couldn't land one. So they bought Jesse Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich, and Felice Kafusi. I love that because what that gives you experience and leadership. Those guys set standards, right from the beginning around their training and the way they behave and the way they play. So they're quality people coming into a system where they're great leaders, and all of a sudden all those young kids like the Katoas in life, who is excelling at the moment, but having those players around you will offer a lot more than, obviously at the back end of their careers, but they offer more off field, which is so important.
Well, that was the thing I was talking about, and we were watching it. And Blaise Taulagi is now playing some really good footy, and Casey McLean, you think, is just going to be a star. And they're young players, and they go, the 2 best players in our side, Isaiah Yeo, or let's call it 3, Isaiah Yeo and Nathan Cleary and Dylan Edwards, they're always first to training, they're always last to leave, and they're always the hardest workers.
That's right. Exactly right. So that's the environment you're trying to create. So you got to set standards. You got to set the standard. So and then the way you set the standards, obviously, through the people you have in your organisation. So your leaders are so crucial.
Yep.
And your leaders, the leaders of your football department are so crucial. Your leaders of your organisation are so crucial, and your board members are so crucial in setting the standards of that club and its community. So I think clubs are true reflections of the society that wants to support them, the community that wants to support them. So and people understand all that. So if you're setting standards and you're communicating those standards into the community, well, they buy into that and they'll follow you because you're being realistic with them.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Jimmy and Mal. Do the Perth Bears have a feeder club in the Q Cup, as the Western Clydesdales are needing an NRL team, and that would also give them a foothold in one of the fastest growing areas in Queensland? That's a very good point, Lance.
Yeah, no, it's certainly going to be part of the conversation. Absolutely. It's really important part of the conversation. Again, we're on the West Coast. We've got a uniqueness about us where we can go into South Africa, and we can go into the UK. But we also need a presence. We've got the North Sydney Bears, obviously in the New South Wales and in Sydney region, and we certainly think we need to have some sort of relationship up in Queensland. It is a strong foothold for rugby league. That southeast region, and Toowoomba's part of all that. And they service a whole greater area out, into the southwest and middle west and things like that. So it's certainly, it will be discussed. It needs to be considered, and it's something that probably eventually we need to do.
A lot on the agenda of this board meeting, isn't there, Mel?
Yeah. Well, it's not going to happen in this board meeting, but over time, it will. So the next few, it's obviously going to be an overview. It's going to be historical. We need to understand what the identity of the Perth Bears are going to be, and and everyone's got to buy into that. Everyone on the board and everyone that's going to be part of the executive, we play a part in the club we want to be.
Stormy Daniel says, Mal, there seems to be conjecture amongst fans regarding the Perth Bears. Can you clarify? Is it to be an entirely new franchise with new history and new records, not a continuation of North Sydney? Many seem to think it's a readmission and relocation of Norths. Is this correct?
That's a good question too, Stormy Daniels. It is a new franchise. It's the Perth Bears, but we're honouring the legacy of North Sydney Bears, and we're going to affiliate with them. To obviously in partnership and try to recreate a Bears fraternity in WA. So that's my understanding. But the North Sydney Bears are going to be a very important component of all that. But it is a new entity, and it's going to be structured and worked out of Perth.
Yeah. Hey, boys, is Kalen Ponga the only current NRL player born in Western Australia? Asked the Ipswich Bulldog. Well, I can tell you Ipswich Bulldog Braden a little bit earlier mentioned Kennedy and Ruben Cherrington, both from Perth. So
yeah, the ladies, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Daniel Parker's over there, but her daughter, Shanice Parker, she was born in WA as well, born in Perth.
There you go. And there's one person said, Jim, surely South Logan would be Mal's preference to establish a Queensland Cup affiliation. That's from Troy and Georgie.
Yeah, well, that Logan area is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. Obviously, the Warriors are setting up an academy in that region as well. So they're affiliated with the Broncos, so I can't get them out of the Broncos. To be honest with you,
no. It doesn't mean you can't have the conversation, Malcolm. Now, Saturday, are you Fox Sporting? Are we going to be watching you on our TV screens?
Yeah, no, I'm Super Saturday. Some great games again this weekend, Jimmy, isn't there?
Oh.
So starting tonight, with the Eels and the Storm. So Eels on the rise, Storm without Jerome Hughes. So it's going to be interesting how that all pans out. But yeah, Super Saturday.
Super Saturday.
The mighty Titans and Panthers. See what the Panthers keep going. The mighty Raiders are there, mate.
Yep.
And then your team, the Roosters, eh?
Yeah.
So the 3 R's are playing.
Yeah. Who's hosting Super Saturday now?
Braith.
Oh, Braith's there. Does Braith manage Cameron Munster and Jonah Pezzett?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Does he or what?
I'm not sure. Maybe you could ask him in one of the ad breaks or something. You could.
Okay, I'll come back to you next week, mate, with that one, if you don't mind.
Oh, that'd be great, Mel. That'd be great. All right, you enjoy that weekend, and we will do it again next Thursday, Malcolm.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. It's always a pleasure, mate. Always.
Oh, listen, have a listen to you. Good on you. Mal Meninga, there he is, the 13th Immortal, the new Perth Bears coach. It's the Throwdown with Mal Meninga. Thanks for watching. For more great content, subscribe to SEN League, your home of the greatest game of all.